It's happy hour, gang, and welcome to another special live web stream from WhiskyCast.com. I'm Mark Gillespie, and we are trying to help you occupy your time during the coronavirus crisis. We know you're all working from home, so we're going to be producing extra content over the next few weeks to help keep you entertained. And since it's happy hour, and as you can see, it's a gorgeous day here in Haddonfield. Temperature's about 70 degrees, about 21 degrees or so Celsius, and it is one of those fun days that we're going to have some fun for the next hour or so. And we've got some guests that are going to be joining us by both telephone and by webcam. The big thing today is that just in the last hour or so, President Trump signed the $2 trillion, that's trillion with a TR, gang, $2 trillion economic stimulus package to try to help keep the American economy going during the coronavirus crisis. I want to bring in Chris Swonger now on the telephone, joining us from Washington. Chris is the CEO of the Distilled Spirits Council. Chris, can you hear me okay? Let's talk about the stimulus. What is in it for distillers? I know that you at least got the federal excise tax break on hand sanitizers, but it's still not quite enough, is it?
Business that's now in the hand sanitizer, supporting our communities business to collaborate where they need supplies or distribution, or there's platforms where entities need to get access to hand sanitizer. So, under the circumstances, I wish we didn't have to put that portal up, but it's being fully utilized. And, I'm happy and pleased that we did get the federal excise tax provision in there, because the impacts on distilleries all around the country are pretty significant. And we'll work with TTB and the Food and Drug Administration to make sure that federal excise tax is exempted for all the distilleries that are doing their level best just to keep their community safe. And we want to make sure they're not imposed on a tax that's not necessary.
Chris, I want to apologize to our listeners because they could probably not hear about the first minute of your answer just because I had a setting wrong on this end. We are flying live here, and that brings with it all sorts of little fun technical issues that we're still working out all the bugs on. But how soon do you think we can see some impact from this for the craft distillers, at least on the hand sanitizer issue? And let's explain also what you still need from the Food and Drug Administration to make this happen.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit complex. It's a complex issue, but the FDA issued a guidance earlier in the week that was problematic. All of the craft distillers that mobilized quickly, like 10, 12, 14 days ago, to do this and to help, all for the greater good of combating COVID-19, they were following the World Health Organization, WHO, guidelines for health sanitizer, which permits the use of undenatured alcohol as to utilize for hand sanitizer. Earlier in the week, the FDA issued a guidance that created some confusion. Understandably, the FDA is concerned that when you use undenatured alcohol as a hand sanitizer, if an adolescent were to take a sip of the hand sanitizer in some form, it could be even fatal. So we are now working with the FDA very, very closely. I had a very productive call with them yesterday to provide some flexibility for hand sanitizer for undenatured alcohol that is being used. Essentially, what undenatured alcohol is it has a taste profile, and that's what many of our distilleries are utilizing. It's okay to use denatured alcohol that has kind of a nasty taste profile, and the FDA is not concerned. So we're working closely with the FDA to make sure that we can include a bitter, if you want to call it that, into the undenatured alcohol to where it diminishes the risk of a little tyke, inadvertently consuming the product and getting hurt. Nobody wants that to happen, obviously. Most of the hand sanitizer that's being given away by the distillers around the country are going to emergency responders and health hospitals and so forth. So we have a few details to work out in terms of calling on the FDA to issue a guidance that is much more clear. We did get some guidance from the FDA yesterday that they're going to be flexible, because we also need the FDA to ensure that they're recommending products that would make the undenatured alcohol bitter. Those products are accessible, because we're all in this boat together, and we want to make sure to facilitate with the FDA, making sure that the distilleries can use undenatured alcohol with a proper bitter, so the product is safe and used as intended as well. So we still have some work to do, working with TTB and the FDA to iron out the details on the federal excise tax. But now that the president has signed the bill, we'll be able to do that, and I do have some confidence we'll get there with the FDA and TTB as well. I would like to also say, really call out in this, national emergency. We've worked very, very closely with the White House COVID-19 task force and the Trump administration. And even though we had some frustrations with the FDA earlier in the week, they're working with us now, and really want to call out the TTB as well. They've been remarkable and very helpful in these efforts over the last couple of weeks.
I want to point out for our listeners and viewers around the world who are just joining us on the web, we're talking with Chris Swonger, the CEO of the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, and one of the lead lobbying organizations trying to push through the tax exemption for the distillers that are using essentially their same spirit that they use for their whiskeys to be able to produce hand sanitizers. And that's taxed at a much different rate, Chris, than the denatured alcohol that is normally used in these products, right?
Correct. Basically, what we want to do is eliminate the FET of product that is being used for hand sanitizer, right? And I think with Congress passing the legislation and with some confidence that we can work with FDA and TTB issued a guidance late last night. So we are confident that we'll be able to work out all the details. We recognize many of these distilleries need that tax break because in large part they're incurring expenses on the hand sanitizer just to protect our communities. Look, I recognize, and I think I can speak on behalf of all of the distilleries doing this. Everybody wants to get back in the whiskey making business and distilled spirits making business, right? But in this time of turbulence in the economy and public health, the distilleries around the country are really rising up, and it's a proud moment, despite it all, for the industry.
Chris, I'm going to cut you off there because the cell phone signal in Washington is starting to get a little wonky there, and we're getting some noise in the signal. I know you're out picking up your kids and running around Washington in your car, and we really do appreciate the time today. Thank you again. Chris Swonger from the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States.
Thank you, Mark. Be healthy, everybody.
You
Thank
too.
You.
And once again, thanks to Chris Swonger for joining us on relatively short notice. As I mentioned at the start of this, not only did the House pass the $2 trillion stimulus bill today, but President Trump signed it into the law within the last hour or so, which then clears the way for all these economic stimulus programs that were rammed through in this thing to actually get out to people. I want to bring in our good friend now, Brian Tracy from Sagamore Spirit. Brian, welcome. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Thanks for having me.
Now, Brian, you're one of the distilleries that wants to make hand sanitizer. You've been working with Larry Hogan, the governor in Maryland, to try to get this through. Tell me where you guys stand right now.
Like you mentioned, I mean, we're highly focused on doing our part in anything we can to help the Marylanders and other folks in the region and the men and women on the front lines to get what they need. It's obviously a real critical situation, the shortage of hand sanitizer. It's been a process. You know, we want to make sure we're doing it right. Don't want to reiterate too much what Chris has been through, but a lot of regulation to be worked out and worked through. And for the most part, people have been really cooperative. But, you know, making sure that we're following the TTP guidelines, FDA, World Health Organization. We've really been fortunate enough to partner up with the local hospital, Johns Hopkins, obviously really considered one of the best in the world. And we've been working extremely closely with them over the last week to really understand the process, to make sure that we can deliver something that meets their needs and qualifications. And so that's been the main focus. And it's been very methodical, very well thought out. Our teams work really closely with them so we can get it perfected and then ideally start to scale up as hopefully some of the supply chain issues or other things get worked out.
Brian, I know you put out a call to your Whiskey Thieves, your online affinity group, to try to put some pressure on members of Congress to lean on the FDA to try to change this. What kind of response have you gotten so far?
Overwhelming. This is really one of those things that's truly affected everybody, and you really see the entire community, everybody pulling together. It really is we'll get through it together. We're seeing a 40+% open click-through rate on emails, you know, that might sometimes be considered spam or junk, which normally experiences about a 3% open rate at best. We're in the 40s, and everybody's doing their part in the feedback on social media. And I just want to take a moment and thank anybody and everybody who's done that so far for us. I think it's working. I'm confident we'll get where we need to get.
Brian, tell me about the impact on your distillery. You've been shut down now for pretty much about a week and a half in terms of everything, not even production. Tell me about having to ramp things back up to start producing alcohol for hand sanitizer.
Yeah, we made a really difficult decision on March 13th that we would basically wind down, and we closed that Sunday. No more tours, and took everybody to tell them to go work from home, and we've been doing that ever since. And then pretty much walked away from the distillery, and now we're coming back and we're trying to get it online. We're also having to make sure we follow safe protocols. You know, everybody wants to do their part, but there is a lot still to be considered. We are taking teammates' temperatures. If anybody's going to be involved in this hand sanitizer process, they have to follow strict guidelines of where they've been, who they've been in contact, have they experienced any forms of illness. They can't come anywhere near the distillery. Working extremely closely with Hopkins and following their guidelines and the protocols and procedures to start up in a very safe manner, and then continue to have a safe work environment. You know, following the distances, making sure we stay 6+ feet away from each other. So those are posing its challenges as well, but it's extremely important that we take care of ourselves and we have a tremendous amount of respect for this process.
I know it's not even time to even start thinking about the financial impact of this, but obviously there will be one. At some point, you're going to have to come to a reckoning with this with your bosses in terms of how much this shutdown is costing you guys per day, right?
100%. We are luckily a little distracted not right now with the hand sanitizer, but once we get this figured out, we're going to have to go jump in and figure out the grim realities of what's going on. Not only the shutdown, but 70% of our business was hotels, restaurants, and bars, and we don't have that. And it's an unfortunate circumstance, and I get why we don't have it, but it's going to have massive effects on our business as well as all distilleries and breweries and wineries. It's an unprecedented time, and it's hard to really begin to know the true effects, but we're going to have to start trying to figure it out and speculate on what the new is. What I think the old ways are gone, and when we get back online, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what the summer looks like. I don't know when things start coming back online, and it's really difficult to try and forecast anything with so much unknown.
I know that it has been a tough time for everybody in the business, you guys included, and I want to thank you for joining us on short notice this afternoon. We do emphasize, in full disclosure, Sagamore Spirit is a sponsor of WhiskyCast, and we do not just feature sponsors on this show, but we thank you for your support, Brian, and look forward to the day when we can come see you guys in Baltimore for one of those Whiskey on the Waterfront nights. We
can't wait to be open again, everybody. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Okay, thank you again, Brian Tracy from Sagamore Spirit. Now, let's move on for a second here. It is Friday. It is afternoon. It is happy hour time, kids. So our old pal Sam Spears was over here in the Bat Cave a while back and left a little pour of something here, and I think I know what it is, but I'm not going to say what it is because I'm not 100% sure, and I just want to taste it. And I hope you've got a dram with you as well, because frankly, guys, this has been one hellacious week for all of us. We've gone through a lot with everything in the news, with everything from homeschooling kids to dealing with spouses who we have to now work from home with, who we sort of got used to maybe being away from for 8 to 9 hours a day, present company excluded. You know what I mean, guys. It's been a hellacious week, and Sláinte, let's just start off with that, and then oh, that's nice. Our thoughts also, of course, as I said yesterday on our live stream, go out to all those who have been affected by the coronavirus, by this pandemic worldwide. As Brian was saying, we don't know what the future is going to be. We don't know what the future holds, when we're going to get back to normal, or even what the new normal is going to be, whether this is going to be part of our lives. But as long as we have each other and we take good care of each other, then things hopefully will work out all right. A little bit of inside baseball here. You may be able to hear a jet engine in the background. That's because we happen to live right on the approach path to Philadelphia International Airport. So we get planes, normally when the planes are flying, we get them bombing through here about every 5 minutes during the peak time of the afternoon. Usually between about 2 and 4 o'clock is when all the overseas flights that left London, Frankfurt, Rome, and all the European cities that are coming over on American Airlines are buzzing over this place with the occasional British Airways 747 coming in at about 2,000 feet, which makes it a rather fun experience. But like I said, I hope you have a healthy dram with you and we're all getting through this responsibly. And take care of yourselves, because I know it would be easy just to sit in the basement all day and do nothing but sample whiskeys, but that's not healthy for me. I know it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for any of us. We've all got to take care of each other out there. Now, let's move on. Yesterday on the live stream, we had a question about Bunnahabhain. And I want to bring in Mike Brisebois, Maltman Canada. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
Thanks for joining us, because one of our listeners in Alberta is not happy right now because he can't find any of your whiskeys. What gives?
Well, honestly, there's been a lot of love for Bunna in Alberta these days. And, we've been out of stock for a bit, and I have some good news. There's some coming. We got 160 cases that's supposed to land on April 7th in Alberta of Bunna 12. So, we know the love there. We want to make sure the product gets there. And, you're mentioning earlier, Bunna 25 is there. We usually don't have any there either. But I was shocked when you told me, I think it was Greg was mentioning that's the only one that was available at one of the shops there. So, lots of more interest over the last couple of years for Bunna, and we feel it, and we want to make sure that we get enough stock for all of you that love this amazing whiskey, and more than happy to make sure that it keeps coming to you.
I saw you had a bottle there in front of you. What do you got specifically?
Well, I got the Bunna 12. That's the one you mentioned. That
the one everybody wants. It's available in Ontario, all over the place where you live, right?
Yeah, so we have lots in Ontario. We have lots in BC. But the rest of the country, we've been struggling to get some out there, but it's coming. It's coming. And this is my go-to whiskey, so maybe that's why everyone in Canada wants to drink it.
Let's talk about the others. How about Deanston, Tobermory, and Lechig? How's the availability in Canada and elsewhere?
Pretty good. Deanston, readily available across the country. You have that in Alberta, Deanston Virgin Oak, Deanston 12, Deanston 18, as well in BC. Ontario, I believe in Manitoba, we also have Deanston Virgin Oak. And out east, not much, but we're working on getting some there as well. Tobermory, not a lot. The Tobermory 12, we launched it in Alberta. That sold out pretty quick. And then in Ontario, we have it. And a good amount of Lechik. BC, if you love Lechik, we have lots. I think we have over 2,000 bottles available. I did a live stream yesterday on Instagram Live talking about it. And if you like peat, that's one to go for.
Yeah, I know you don't normally handle the U.S., but we also had some listeners on the live stream yesterday complaining they can't find it in the U.S. either as far as the Bunnahabhain 12. What do you know about U.S. availability?
Yeah, it should be plenty. I know Terlato Wines is our distributor in the U.S., and I speak to a lot of people from the U.S. as well for interest in a lot of the whiskeys, and I can see why there's maybe limited stock because, like I said earlier, there's a lot more people interested in really getting into it.
I am told that plane that just went overhead, I couldn't see it, was actually a FedEx plane. So who knows? Maybe there's a whiskey ferry delivery on it. It's not your stuff going up to Alberta.
No.
But I just wanted to find out what's going on. And we figured if we're doing these live streams, let's get the guy on who knows. Mike Grisois, the Bunnahabhain and Distell brand ambassador for Canada. Mike, what can you tell us? How's the visitor center expansion going at Bunnahabhain? I know the distillery is closed now to visitors, but the expansion work is still going on, right?
I heard that everything's done, but there's no heat yet. So we're just waiting on getting some heat getting into the visitor center because sometimes get cold up in the distillery by the water.
Scotland, never on Islay. Okay, Mike, if it hadn't been for the coronavirus, we'd be together in Cornwall, Ontario this weekend at the Wonderful World of Whiskey show. I am sorry that that and all the other events had to be canceled. It's good to talk to you, and thank you for joining us on short notice today to help answer that question. I believe it was Greg Unruh that asked the question yesterday, and I hope this answers it for him.
Perfect. Well, thanks for having me on, Mark. Nice seeing you.
You too, Mike. Take care. Stay healthy, friend. Let's move on now. Whiskey Magazine handed out its awards yesterday. The ceremony would have been done at their awards dinner in London because this would have been Whiskey Live weekend in London, but it didn't happen for obvious reasons. We are joined now by one of the winners, Becky Paskin, named the Whiskey Communicator of the Year in the Icons of Whiskey Awards. Becky's joining us you're in London now, right?
Brighton, actually. Yes, I live
Yeah,
on
nobody
the
in
South
Brighton
Coast.
complains about or ever claims being in London, right?
No, I'm really happy to not be in London, that's for sure. Having access to the seafront, having nice fresh air is lovely. A little bit more space is great as well. I don't know what the state is in the rest of America in different places, but we're on lockdown here in the UK, so that means we're not allowed to leave our houses until unless we are going grocery shopping or picking up medical supplies, or we can have one form of daily exercise. So getting out for a nice little walk or a run is a blessing, really. It's not something I ever thought I would ever say. It is a bit of a shame not to be able to go to Whiskey Live, to the World Whiskies Awards for sure. And I know a lot of people who've won awards today, and which were announced yesterday. really sad not to be able to see each other and to celebrate each other's wins. But you know, we're all cheersing each other virtually and all raising a dram to each other, and you know, that's the best we've got right now, right? Mm-hmm.
Folks, if you have questions for Becky or me or anything else you'd like to say, there are chat windows available on your screen, and feel free to ask questions. We'll pop them up on the screen and try to ask some of them. Mm. What did you find? What did you think when you heard, or at least when you saw your name on social media yesterday? It's not quite the same as being in an awards dinner and getting the kind of reaction, huh?
Yeah, well, it was funny actually, because I was right in the middle of doing tasting notes, so my head was down. I kind of like knew it was happening in the background, but because I was so involved in the whiskey in my glass, I wasn't checking to see what was happening, and then my phone just started buzzing, people messaging like, "Oh my God, have you just seen what's happened?" I mean, that's lovely. That's really nice to see. It's kind of in a social media way of recreating that buzz that you get from being at a award ceremony and having your name read aloud. It's it's still a surprise. I mean, to be named Communicator of the Year is great. Especially at a time when now, as a lot of people probably know me from being editor of ScotchWhisky.com, which is a site which sadly is no longer being updated, which is a shame. Mark's drinking to its demise.
No, I'm drinking to your success in the future.
Oh, great, thanks. It's nice to be recognised still for some of the work I'm doing. You know, I'm still out there writing and still working on Our Whiskey, which is a project which I launched a couple of years ago and is actually now sort of moving into a new phase of its life. So in the next sort of week or so, next month, you'll start to see some new things from Our Whiskey, a new lease of life. Really exciting. We might actually, so stay tuned to at Our Whiskey on social media. There'll be an update this week with something really exciting. So hopefully it'll be a little ray of sunshine in the darkness right now. Yeah.
And we'll have you back on when you have that announcement. But I got to ask, what was in your glass? What were you tasting when you got that announcement?
Oh, when I got the announcement, do you know what? I've got no idea because it's all blind tasting.
Okay, blind tasting. Okay, what's in the glass right now?
Right. Okay. So right now, I'm drinking. So this is really wonderful, and I'm super happy to be tasting this right now because it's also a bottle kill, live on WhiskyCast. I've finished my Glenmorangie Companta. Finally, I'm really happy. I'm actually really happy about this. I've been working on this one for a while, but I now have an empty bottle, and I don't know if you can see my mantelpiece behind me, but it's full of whiskey samples that I get to review, and I've got nowhere to put them. So I'm glad I've got a bottle now. I can create an infinity bottle out of all of those samples. So,
I'm posting a graphic on there because a certain person who happens to be my managing director / business partner is asking, are those neatly organized samples behind you? Because if somebody actually took a look behind the camera yesterday, you would see sample bottles all over the place in my basement.
Oh, okay. Yes. I'm a bit of a neat freak. I can't deal with a messy house, hence being so happy that I can finally decant these samples into an empty Glenmorangie bottle, and create a infinity whiskey for myself. And then what I'm hoping to do, so all of these samples that I've tasting here are actually for Whiskey Magazine's reviews, so for the next couple of issues that are coming out, and what I'm trying to do with those guys, we're trying to create a closed loop system. So all of the sample bottles that I empty, I package them back up and get them back to the team at Whiskey Magazine so they can then refill them and send them back down to me. So we're trying to create hardly any waste. You know, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint with this. So obviously tasting a lot of whiskies, reviewing as many whiskies as you do as a whiskey communicator, I don't want all these glass bottles to go to waste. So we're trying our best, you know, small steps, but I think everything counts.
And we do want people to tell us what you're drinking right now. You can post that in the comments too. We're showing some of those.
Oh, Billy's on the gin cocktails.
Yeah, Billy's on the gin cocktails. Our pal Billy Abbott, who works for the Whiskey Exchange, and your former colleague over at Specialty Drinks and the Raj and Sukhinder Singh empire that ran Scotch Whisky. Tell us what you've been doing since the sad demise of ScotchWhisky.com, besides working on Our Whiskey, and we'll get to that in just a second.
Well, just mostly sitting in the basement drinking whiskey, drowning my sorrows. I'm joking. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, really. Obviously, ScotchWhisky.com was so well loved by everybody, and certainly I can speak for Sukhinder and Raj Beer, who co-founded Whisky Exchange, and obviously ScotchWhisky.com, and Dave Brim and Richard Woodard, who worked so closely with me on the project. And to be honest, the entire crew behind that project, the designers, developers, everybody, all of our contributors who did such an amazing job. It was so sad to see that close. We really felt it, and I think the whiskey community around the world felt it as well. So since then, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I've been writing for a variety of different publications. I've been consulting on a few different projects, so doing some content creation, helping do a bit of research, working on some papers. It's only been 4 or 5 months so far, but it's gone very, very quickly. I think you must agree with that, Mark. It's gone extremely quickly.
Yeah, it seems like just yesterday that we were reporting on this, and I think the whole world is moving so quickly right now that I don't know where we wind up with all this. What are you hearing over on your end of your side of the Atlantic?
Obviously, it's a very, very difficult time for distillers just now, and I don't honestly think anybody really knows what to do. We just heard from from the guys at Sagamore Spirits. It's that lovely line is like, I don't know what someone looks like. Nobody knows what the future holds. Nobody knows what's the right thing to do. Do we continue producing spirit? Do we continue laying down? Do the production, the bottling halls still continue to operate on a skeleton crew? If so, like, what measures do you have in place to do that? What are the guidelines? But then at the same time, these distillers are doing such an amazing, very necessary job in creating hand sanitizer for the world, and for the most part donating it where they can. So, I think whiskey distillers still have a place in the world right now. They're still needed. I think there's a lot of work that can be done from the rest of the industry to try and keep momentum going through the whiskey industry. Personally, my thoughts are with a lot of freelancers, a lot of whiskey writers who are out there right now who maybe are finding that they don't have as much work as they used to. Maybe budgets are being cut, advertising budgets are being cut, marketing budgets are being cut. So those whiskey publications, I don't know whether you felt this yourself, Mark, but maybe other whiskey publications are feeling a hit there. With some of their support has kind of been retracted for the rest of the year, and that has a knock-on effect to the whiskey writers and how they survive too. I think the whole industry needs to pull together, continue talking about whiskey responsibly. Of course, we are in a lockdown situation. That doesn't mean we should abuse it. We should be using this opportunity to explore whiskey more, to discuss it more. We've never, weirdly, been more connected. You're on the other side of the world in broad daylight. Yeah. It's 9:30 p.m. here in Brighton. We've never been a more connected community of whiskey drinkers, and I think it's really important that we continue to be that way. We continue to talk about whiskey, share our love of it, continue to buy whiskey, and I would like to encourage people to maybe look at purchasing from independent producers, independent retailers, the people that need the money the most. The supermarkets have people queuing and they're running out of stock. They're fine. Buy from the independent retailers, and try and seek out new brands you've maybe not tried before. Those independent brands that are actually, quite frankly, struggling. Use this opportunity to explore and try something new.
Becky, we had a question from Pierre Wader. He wants to know if you were planning to go to the Phage this year on Isla. Of course, it's been canceled.
It has. Do you know what? Isla has a very special place in my heart, and anyone who knows me knows I'm a bit of a cat lover. I even named my cat Isla. Although a lot of funny thing is, actually, outside of the whiskey world, nobody knows what Isla is. They have no idea it's a British island. My vet calls my cat Islay. They have no idea how to pronounce it. Yes, I would have loved to go back to Isla. It's got a very special place in my heart. I love the place, the people, and Facial is such a beautiful festival. It's just so full of life and such a lovely place for everybody to get together, and people just go back year after year to see their friends. And I, for one, have definitely met friends there who I would have loved to see again. I would have loved to try out some of those amazing whiskies. Unfortunately, it's not happening. The same with other festivals. Spirit of Speyside and Campbelltown have also been cancelled. It's a shame, but circumstances being what they are. But that's why I think it's more important for us to keep connecting with each other, keep talking about whiskey.
Yeah, I am so sad about this because I haven't been to the Isla Festival in probably this would have been 10 years since I was at the last one. I was at my last one in 2010. But the island gets so overcrowded with the population literally triples during that week, and it's hard to even get around. That there was no way they could have held it this year. There was just no way. It would have overloaded what limited health facilities they have on that island.
Exactly. And I know that everybody who is on Isla at the moment and the community that they have there are really helping each other currently. They're working together to try and battle it, to look after each other, to support the NHS and their health services and their carers. It's very difficult, and anyone who's ever spent any time in Isla in any kind of bad weather or when a ferry breaks down knows how difficult it can be to live on an island in the midst of something like this. So when a ferry breaks down on a good day, you don't get your paper. If the ferries don't run full stop, you don't really get anything. So
the co-op in Beaumont doesn't get any food replenishments.
I know, poor co-op.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go in there for the dairy milk bars and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, our chocolate's way better than anything you've got, Mark.
Yes, I'm painfully aware of that fact. Although when the coronavirus crisis ends, there is actually a shop here in Haddonfield that sells British snacks and foods and stuff, and they do sneak in the real dairy milk. It's $1.70 a bar, but it's worth it.
Oh, every penny. You've got to have good chocolate, especially if you're having a nice dram as well. That chocolate's just like beautiful.
We should also point out, we were talking about Isla, and I know that I got confirmation today that both Laphroaig and Beaumont are closed down completely. They're not producing anything. And Glenfarclas up in Speyside announced today they've shut down as well. Have you heard about any other distilleries that have not only shut down visitor centers and tours, but are also closing down production?
Look, I think what's important to note is there are some distilleries are producing spirit which is going into hand sanitizer. So a lot of them that are still operating are doing so because they're providing a service, a very necessary service right now. If they're producing whiskey still, you've got to remember this is there's a whole chain of production that goes into producing whiskey. So you have the farmers that are bringing barley in from the fields. If they can't then sell on their barley to the distillers, then they're at a loss and they lose their livelihoods. At the other end of producing whiskey as well, you've got all of the draff, all the byproducts that are made as well, which go to feed the cows, the livestock. If the livestock can't get in their food, then the farmers are going to suffer. So there's a whole big chain that you need to consider. So while some distillers may feel it's appropriate for them to close down, perhaps it's a distillery that's operating in a very small area that it's very difficult for people to move around safely. Maybe they have a huge production line with a bottling hall where it's just not right for them to be operating. I know Brookladdy for one is like that. So again on Isla they've closed down. There are others that are still operating within the limits, within what they can properly do, and also on a skeleton crew. And it's funny, over the years, Mark, we've had quite a lot of whiskey enthusiasts talk about how awful it is that these distilleries are so automated these days and there's no craft that's in it anymore. But these distilleries can operate on a crew of 1 or 2 people, and that's what's needed to keep them going right now. And thank God, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to operate. And I know I'm speaking to some distillers as well who are operating on their own. they're doing everything they can to keep loneliness and boredom at bay by blaring Disney tunes in the control room and just singing at the top of their voices and just trying to get through it as best they can. And I think that's what it's about. And I wouldn't want to pass any judgment on any distillery that decides to stay open. They do so because that's the right thing for their business and their staff and for the health of their staff and community. But equally, if they feel like they need to close, then that's the right decision that they've made for them as well. So let's just show collaborative support for everybody and hope that the whiskey industry gets through this, because God knows we're going to need a drink at the other side of it. So let's hope there's enough.
When you were talking there about the farmers depending on the draft from the stills, and I'm thinking Lion King, the circle of life and song, and I'm going, I've got the Disney tune. Then you start talking about blaring Disney tunes. Lovely.
Oh, no. Well, I know what you're doing this evening.
No, I'm drinking tonight. Now, the question I have is, we've also heard, and I'm not sure how much you know about this or how much you've read, I did see where the GMB, one of the two major trade unions in Scotland that represents workers for the distilleries and the whiskey companies, is calling for a complete shutdown just to protect the rest of the workers from being exposed to coronavirus. What have you heard about that? I know the SWA is trying to keep as many of its people going, as many of its members going as it can.
I think, look, it's up to the Scottish government to decide that. And I'm sure, Nicola Sturgeon and her team are working out a solution that's best for the whiskey industry and for the safety of their workers as well. As far as I know, there's not been an update in the last day. We can continue to look at the situation, but I mean, as I just said, I think it's a really difficult one to call, and there's no right or wrong answer. And I know everybody has the best interests of their workers at heart. So yeah, it's a really difficult one, Mark. It's tough.
We have a question from Wolfie, who asks, are distilleries in Britain and Scotland producing hand sanitizer like here in North America?
Oh,
I know the guys at Brooklotti are, because one of the women who works in their gift shop is actually an applied chemical scientist and was working with the Isla soap people to make a soap.
I saw that.
And I saw that. Yeah, we both saw that. And I'm going, so how many other distilleries in Britain are doing this? And we should point out, because it's been asked, there are different tax rules here in the U.S. regarding the alcohol that's used for beverage alcohol and the denatured alcohol that's used for hand sanitizer. So the tax issues are specific to the U.S., but they don't apply in places like the UK and other countries. So how many people are making hand sanitizer over there now?
Well, I don't have a accurate figure for you, but there's definitely quite a few. We hear more stories about the guys in the US making hand sanitizer than in the UK. I think there are quite a few here doing it. We do obviously still have a need for hand sanitizer. We are in a big crisis, so it's very much needed. I can't give you an accurate figure about how many are doing it, but needless to say, that not just the Scotch whisky industry, but the whole of the UK is behind the efforts to try and beat this virus for sure.
And we have a comment now from Gary Haggart, who is the manager at Llandoris Abbey Distillery in Scotland, who says, we most certainly are 63.6% NMS, glycerol, and hydrogen peroxide. That sounds like a tasty recipe.
I saw there was somebody posted a really great article. I was just waiting for it to come. A tongue-in-cheek tasting of all the different hand sanitizers that are being produced at distilleries around Scotland.
I am waiting for somebody to release a hand sanitizer with a vintage or an age statement.
Oh no, I'm waiting for the cinnamon flavored version.
Oh, I'm waiting for the peated one. I have heard rumors that we might have a peated hand sanitizer in a few days. April Fool's Day is coming up. And it would not surprise me if somebody does a peated hand sanitizer for April Fool's Day.
Yeah, maybe. I think the situation's gotten a little bit too serious for April Fool's Day. There's actually been
we've got to have a little bit of fun somewhere along the line, or we're all going to go completely crazy.
Speaking of which, have you guys had your moment of standing outside clapping for your healthcare workers yet?
No.
Okay, so we had this last night, at 8 p.m.
I have heard about this. Yeah.
So this message, so the guys in Italy have done it, in Spain they've done it as well. And I was on a call with Nicola Resk, who's the Macallan ambassador for Europe, and she at 8 p.m. said, "Oh, hold on a second, Becky, I'm just going to pop to the window." She opened the window, and everybody was clapping and cheering. She says they do it every single night to show their appreciation for the healthcare workers. So in the UK, this message was circulating on WhatsApp, and it was only on WhatsApp and some on Facebook and some on Instagram. Just everybody go outside, 26th of March, 8 p.m. and clap and cheer for the NHS, for all the police and the care workers out there who are doing a sterling job. And I tell you what, nobody was talking about it, but at 8 p.m, you bet they were outside clapping, cheering, banging pots of pans, whooping. It was incredible. If you haven't seen any of the coverage, go online and try and find some of the videos from what was happening last night. It was just breathtaking, really emotional. The whole country was just united in just their appreciation of what these guys are doing, putting their lives at risk for the rest of us. It was so great.
Yeah, I mean, you feel for everybody in the healthcare industry right now, the doctors, the nurses, the lab technicians, everybody, because they're just completely overwhelmed. And when you hear about shortages of masks and personal protective equipment and everything, and you just wonder, how did we get to this state? But okay, let's get past that. We're moving on now. Now, MacMira John from MacMira Distillery wants a Tabasco sauce finish sanitizer. Lovely.
Oh.
And Wolfie points out, don't take that into the shower because that could burn. Our pal Ian Logan at the Glenlivet would prefer a fruity sanitizer himself. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Our pal Billy Abbott says there are a lot of folks doing it in the UK, but some are keeping quiet about it because they don't want people trying to buy it from them when it's primarily for the frontline folks.
And actually, that's true. There have been a lot of, I've seen a lot of cases where people have been under the impression that a distillery is making hand sanitizer, and so they pop up to the distillery to try and buy it. In some cases, it's not the case. That particular distillery isn't making it, and it's proving quite difficult for them to handle the level of interest from consumers for the hand sanitizer. I think it's important to remember that consumers should be purchasing the hand sanitizer through regular routes. The stuff the distilleries are creating are mostly for people on the front line, which is where it's needed, at the hospitals, at GP surgeries. So let's exercise some self-control, just wash our hands properly with soap, because normal soap works.
Yeah,
right?
Normal soap is the best thing there is out there. We also want to say hello to Patricia at Speyside Distillery. She says she put a message saying she's raising a glass with us both tonight. And Pierre Waidert has a cheeky question to Becky. Do you have a preferred malt to cuddle up with during the lockdown?
I think you've seen from the mantelpiece behind me just how many whiskeys I get to taste on a daily basis. So having a favorite one to cuddle down with is very difficult. Normally it's whatever's in my glass, and if I'm having a drink with somebody virtually, maybe, actually this evening I had a virtual happy hour with some friends, and I didn't actually have a whiskey. I had a beer. Shock, horror.
There is nothing wrong with that. You got to hydrate sometimes.
Oh, you got to hydrate. And that was wonderful. So, no, and it's funny, Mark, you must get this as well. The question I'm always asked is what's the best whiskey? What's your favorite whiskey? And, oh my goodness, if I just had £1 for every time, then I could bail us all out.
We should start charging for that question.
We should. My answer is always whatever is in my glass at any one particular time, because it's all about who you're with and the moment you're in, and it's that's it really. So
my standard response is I haven't found it yet, because I keep tasting whiskeys and I've posted them all on the website. We've got something like close to 2,850 on the website for tasting notes. And for me to define a favorite would be, I'd have to be willing to drink that for the rest of my life and nothing else, and not even want anything else. I haven't found that yet.
Let me ask you a question. What's your favorite whiskey moment? What's your favorite whiskey memory where you've had a dram in a glass and you've been somewhere in particular and just thought, this is awesome?
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to post a comment from our buddy Ian Logan, who says, now I see why you are Communicator of the Year, Becky.
Oh, Ian.
And Patricia echoes that. Yes, indeed, Ian. I'm going to that would have been 2009. I was in the Gordon and MacPhail warehouses in Elgin with Michael Urquhart. And he was taking me around on a tour, and we were doing some tasting. And then all of a sudden he says, I got one more I want you to try. And he pulls it out of a blind bottle, and I tasted this absolutely stunning whiskey. And it was the Mortlock 70 they had just released a few weeks earlier.
Wow.
And I'm going, and he told me what it was, and I'm going, you're kidding, right? I'm going, you're letting me try this? And he goes, yeah, I want you to try it. And I'm going, dude. I practically had to not bow down and kiss his feet. It was just one of the most stunning whiskeys I've ever tasted. And it is one of the few whiskeys I've scored 98 points. Oh, wow. I think there's 7 of them that I've scored 98 points. Because I went back and looked the other day just for giggles. And
what were the others? Do you remember?
Let's see. One was Highland Park 1968. There was a Glendronach 50 in there. The Redbreast Dream Cask 32-year-old. And, oh, geez. There was, I think, 2 Kuruizawas in there.
Oh, okay.
And as Wolfie points out, great question, Becky and lucky Ian. And Wolfie's going mind blown also. And once again, folks, if you have questions or comments, just put them in the chat window and we'll post them up here on the screen. If you have questions, we'll go for a couple more minutes here. So what's the next whiskey you're going to try tonight, Becky?
Well, probably won't have another because it's getting quite late.
Wimp.
I know. I still have...
Come on, your cat wants you to have another dram.
Maybe I'll have another one. I don't know. I have some really nice whiskeys to try. I might... Do you know, actually, I just got a reveal for some of the whiskeys I reviewed for the next issue of Whiskey Magazine, and one of which, I'm sure this won't be too much of a spoiler. I hope not. Rob, please forgive me if it is. So I had the opportunity to taste all 4 of the new Chivas 13 releases side by side without knowing what they are.
Oh, wow.
Didn't know that they were Chivas. Didn't know they were the 13-year-olds. Didn't know that they were the different casks. So they have sherry, rum, rye, and tequila. That's
not the Manchester United edition, right?
The
Chivas Regal Manchester United version they put out?
Yes, the rye one is the Manchester United version.
Okay.
Yeah. So but the new ones are sherry, rum, and tequila. So I tried all of them back to back. And I've got to say, I couldn't have told you what, if any of them even had tequila in it. I wouldn't have had a clue. And I went back over my tasting notes for the tequila one. Wouldn't have been able to tell you. So that was a really nicely integrated cask. I think I gave it an okay score. It's just a nice whiskey, not too overdone by the tequila, because there have been some Irish whiskies, some other whiskies that have tried doing tequila mezcal. And I've tried whiskies that have been matured in like aquavit casks and all sorts of things. And I see there's a seaweed cask now.
Did you try that seaweed Irish whiskey?
No.
I haven't tried it yet. I'm
good. No. I'm all right. Thanks. I mean, you've tried the fishki though, Mark, haven't you?
Dear God. Yeah. Yeah.
See, that's one I'm definitely passing on. If there was one whiskey that I never would want to try, it's
that. I didn't get a choice. John McDonald at Bal Blair gave that son of a bitch to me blind. Pardon my language there, but he gave it to me at the end of a blind tasting, and I didn't know what I was tasting. I take a mouthful of this thing, and I'm going, "Oh dear God!"
So you've got to explain for people who don't know what fishki is exactly what that is, because it's pretty
good.
Is
done by Klaus Pinkernell, who runs a couple of whiskey shops in Austria. Pinkernell's whiskey shop. And what he did was he got his hands on a cask of Bruichladdich a few years ago. And warped person that he is, he decided he wanted to make a statement about finishes. So he took half of it and put it into a herring cask. The other half he left alone as a comparison. And he sprung this fishkey thing that he called it. He had to actually have the herring cask custom done for him because nobody was putting herring into barrels anymore. But he got somebody to make a barrel for him, put a bunch of herring in there and let it sit for a while. And he put this thing into there and then bottled it. And he still has some left. This was years ago. But it was the second most god-awful whiskey I have ever tasted in my life. And the worst was this Pabst Blue Ribbon thing that came out last year. Matured for 5 seconds. Basically, they ran the thing coming off, the new make coming off the still, they ran it over wood because the TTB told them, you can't call it whiskey unless it's been matured in wood. And they said, well, how long? TTB said, well, there's nothing in the book. They said, would 5 seconds work? And they said, yeah, 5 seconds would work. So essentially, they figured out a way to run this thing over staves coming off the still, and it counts as 5 seconds of maturation. And they put it on the bottle. And the tasting note I had was, dear God, please make it stop.
Oh, that is terrible. Oh, that's awful.
And I think I scored that thing about a 40 on a 100 scale.
High. That's high. Do you know, nobody ever seems to go below a 70 these days. Like, it's just a politeness. Like, if it's really not good at all, if you're not going to recommend it to anybody, it's 70. 70s.
Yeah. And Kelly Walsh asks, was it worse than the Tabasco barrel, which was the Westland that was matured for 4 years in a Tabasco cask? Yes, it was.
What was the George Dickel one?
What?
George Dickel have done Tabasco.
No, Tabasco. No, Dickel did a Tabasco finish where it was in there for a few weeks. Westland did an April Fool's one a few years ago where they did it for 4 years. Oh, and that was just absolutely god awful. And MacMira John asks, which would you rather have of the two? I would do the Westland Inferno, which was the Tabasco finished whiskey or the Tabasco matured whiskey. Yeah, I'd do that again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would definitely go for some Tabasco. Do you know what I would love to try? If somebody wants to fill a cask with Marmite. Somebody wants to fill a cask with Marmite and then chuck some whiskey in. Yeah, maybe a peat. No, not Vegemite. Oh, no, standards. It's all about the Marmite, Mark.
Okay, we'll do the Marmite, and then when the Aussies can do the Vegemite cask.
Yes, the Aussies can do the Vegemite. So, David Vitale, if you're listening, scrap those red wine casks. It's all about the Vegemite, mate. Got to do it. But I reckon, actually, if you think about it, a peated whiskey with a bit of a hint of meaty, salty Vegemite or Marmite would be amazing.
It could be good. It's worth trying at least once. I keep waiting for somebody in Scotland to do the Bucky finish in a cask full of Buckfast.
I have heard of somebody playing about with an iron brew cask.
But iron brew doesn't go into a cask. It's just an orange soda, for crying out loud. I love the stuff, but still.
But if you filled a cask with iron brew, left it to sort of seep into the wood, and then put whiskey into it, it would just be orange whiskey. I mean, have you tried the Amrit? I can't remember the name of it. The one that's been in orange sherry casks.
I know the one. I'm whipping on the name of it. It's Orangery comes to mind, but that's the Compass Box one.
That's Compass Box. It's something like I want to say Naranja, but that's just Spanish for orange.
No, Naranji is the one.
Naranji. Oh yes, that's it. Naranji.
With two A's, Naarangi. Naranji is the one.
Yeah, and that's superb.
And Billy Abbott points out, PBR stole my idea. Is it bad that I want some? Yes, Billy, it is. It is very bad that you want some. Hey, Gary Haggart pointed out here, going to have to go as we are doing our last mash tomorrow before shutting down. Been great listening to you both. Stay safe and take care. He had a comment earlier that I was waiting until we were done here. While you're still there, Gary, because Gary would have been at Cornwall this weekend for the Wonderful World of Whiskey show, and he pointed out earlier that it's a terrible shame that the show had to be canceled at the Nav Center in Cornwall. That's where we met and I interviewed Gary last year. But what has Mr. Ian Bentley done with all the Glenfarclas? Because there was going to be a Glenfarclas dinner last night. And that is being held for next year because they're going to repeat the same schedule, and they're already working towards next year on that one. So I want to get Gary's question in there. And Billy Abbott likes your idea. Marmite cask, take my money.
See, Billy, I have the best ideas. You know it.
Peter McNally says, Becky is awesome. Jim Cook points out that Compass Box also has a whiskey and Calvados blend too. That's a really good one.
Do you know, that's a funny story. So I hosted a tasting at the whiskey show. I think it was last year or the year before. I can't remember now. And John came. He was one of the celebrities who came in to taste a whiskey. So he was one of the speed daters. So all of the whiskey makers who came in to taste whiskey had they brought an interesting drop with them. So John brought this whiskey Calvados blend, and he said, "Oh, I'm not really going to sort of release it or anything. It's just a really interesting whiskey." And he got everybody to try it, and we were like, "Mate, this is amazing. You really should think about releasing it." And he was like, "I mean, I wasn't going to, but okay." And so
I remember this because last year or a couple of years ago when I was at the whiskey show in London, he did a tasting on the Monday trade day where he brought that same thing out, the Calvados blend. Yeah. And I tasted that and I'm going, John, you got to release this. This is good. And he's going, maybe. And then, a year later, yep, we're doing the Calvados blend. By the way, we should point out, we got to congratulate John because Whiskey Magazine not only gave you their Icons Award, but they put John into their Hall of Fame last night. And that's an honor that is highly deserved and highly overdue, in my opinion. John's one of the real pros out there and just one of the best blenders out there. But I want to see him do a blend that doesn't have Klein Leash in it. I'm kidding. I just want to see what he can do without Klein Leash.
But he's got a lot of it. Why would you not use it?
I'm kidding. I just want to see what he can do without it.
Okay, so look, if we're going to be congratulating people for the Whiskey Magazine Awards, it's worth also saying huge congratulations to my partner for Our Whiskey, Georgie Bell, who was named the Scotch Whiskey Ambassador of the Year. Yes. So well done, Georgie. An inspiration for a lot of people in the world, and one of
Amen to that. And we've not talked about Our Whiskey much yet, so tell me what you guys are doing with that.
Okay, so
while I pour another dram.
Yes. So obviously, as I alluded to a bit earlier, so for people who've only just tuned in who didn't catch it, we've got some exciting announcements to come over the next week or so. So if you aren't following us on social media so far, so there's ourwhiskey.com, which actually, Mark, you've gone and got an exclusive. We've not really announced the launch of our website or the fact that we're even running a website. So congratulations, you have the exclusive. So Our Whiskey. So we started 2 years ago with the mission to try to show that there is more to the average whiskey drinker than a white, slightly older man.
Please. No. Go for it.
But it's all over whiskey marketing, and whiskey has been marketed to that demographic for a very, very long time. Now there are 35% of whiskey drinkers are women, and that is still not being reflected in whiskey marketing. So Georgie and I decided to launch a new, at the time, what we thought would be a social media campaign to try to showcase the face of the modern whiskey drinker. And that's done it's done brilliantly. We had an amazing reception from people all around the world. We've even helped brands to curate their social media marketing campaigns as well to try to change the message, to try and modernize the message, because modern whiskey drinkers are younger. They are women as well. And guess what? There are people of all different backgrounds, colors, races. So whiskey marketing really should be reflecting that. And we've seen huge changes in the industry over the last couple of years. But we always say, be the change you want to see in the world. So it's all very well us saying, yes, whiskey marketing should change. Why don't we lead from the front? So very soon, you'll see ourwhiskey.com is currently a holding page, so you can go and register your interest. But going forwards, we're going to be transitioning into our next stage, which is to become an educational platform to help whiskey consumers, beginners, people who don't know very much about whiskey but really want to learn more, to navigate this world of whiskey, to find drams that they really love, to figure out what flavors they like, to find brands that coincide with that type of flavor, to help them on their journey, and in a very condescending and importantly gender neutral way. And I think that's really missing from the whiskey landscape at the moment. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that, and we'll be having a big announcement over the next week or so as well. So in these coronavirus times where we're all locked in and reaching out to each other more and more and still wanting to try whiskies and explore, I hope that we've come up with a solution which will help people. So but yeah, wait and see. But make sure you follow us on social media. So at Our Whiskey across every platform you can think of, and register for at ourwhiskey.com for our newsletter, and you'll see some updates coming in the next week.
Well, that sounds wonderful, Becky. And I think what you guys are doing with this is great.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've always talked about is trying to make whiskey more accessible to everybody. And I can't wait to see what you two do with this, because I know I've known both you and Georgie for years, and you two are amazing. And I can't wait to see how this thing works out for you. And anything we can do to help you, count on us. We're in. We'll play.
Thank you, Mark. I've just got to say, because she keeps bothering me, and I did mention her earlier that I named my cat after my favourite island. She keeps on bugging me throughout this whole interview.
Let's see Isla, sure.
Here she is.
Aww.
I know everyone thinks I'm just a stupid cat mummy, but this is Isla, and she actually loves whiskey as well, believe it or not. Don't you?
She doesn't talk much, but
she's shy, camera shy. Believe me, when you're off camera, she'll be screaming at me.
Oh, I know that feeling. No, one of our cats, Mimi, who we lost a few years ago, was the cat that would get up on my desk and knock over glasses, and she would stick her nose in the sample glass in a Glencairn. She could get her nose in there, and if she liked it and didn't run away from the glass, then I used to refer to it as Mimi approved.
Oh, well, that's the thing. So she sticks her nose in every single glass I have. If she backs away from it, she's not a fan. But if she licks her lips, then she likes it. So currently, her favourite whiskies tend to be Irish. She loves Teeling. Loves Teeling. Actually loves Isla whiskey, so peated whiskey. I think it's anything with a bit of peat to it, and anything with a bit of single pot still.
Tastes like mouse.
She's a big fan of. It tastes like mouse. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I wonder what a cat's tasting notes would be like. I don't even want to go there, because I keep trying to think, why can't they make cat food that actually smells appealing? Because I'm the one who feeds Eeyore every night, and I'm going, I wouldn't eat this stuff. Why would he eat it?
Exactly. I mean, cats, they're supposed to be fussy creatures, right? But I think they'll eat anything that's put in front of them.
We have a long message here from our pal Gavin Ryan Thompson, who's been a long-time listener. Nice to see you both, Becky and Mark. Great work. Nice to be with you tonight, watching from my Bomar #1 Vaults Whiskey Lounge here in Saarbrücken, Germany. Happy International Whiskey Day. Yes, happy International Whiskey Day. I'm sick, unfortunately, so I can't have a dram, but I'm with you in spirit. Slan Shiva. Gavin, we hope you get to feeling better soon, buddy. And I hope that it's not the coronavirus. I hope it's just a regular garden variety something or other. But we're both thinking of you. I know Becky is, and I hope that you get to doing better soon there.
Happy International Whiskey Day, Gavin. Hope you get to have a dram very soon and celebrate in style.
And Ian says, brilliant news, Becky. Wishing both of you the best.
Thanks,
and let's see what else we had here. And Space Single Malt says, sound fab, Becky. Shall be checking this out and shall register our interest. And of course, that's again with Patricia at the Speyside Distillery. And Jim Cook points out, since I said I wanted to see John do something without Kleinleash, be advised the first bottling of Compass Box Hedonism was just 2 components, 20-year-old Caledonian and 10-year-old Cambus. Yes, Jim, that was a single grain. Well played, friend.
Very true. Oh, well, all versions of hedonism, including Quindicimus, are just grain. So yes, no Kleinleash there.
And David Jacob wants to point out, did the cat love Fishki? No, the cat did not love Fishki. The cat was over here 3,000 miles away from the distillery when I tasted it blind at the distillery that night. And Gavin points out, thanks, waiting for the results. Thanks for your wishes. Gavin, once again, we hope you get well soon, buddy. I know you've been a listener for a long time. Becky, I'm going to let you go now because we've taken up more than an hour of your time tonight. I really want to thank you again for doing this, and congratulations on the award. I can't think of anybody who deserves it more, and thank you for spending time with us tonight. Good luck with ourwhiskey.com, and when you guys make that announcement, let me know and we'll have you back on here, and we'll get Georgie in here too.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, Mark, and anytime. And honestly, thank you so much as well for continuing to spread such great words about whiskey throughout this time. I'm sure everybody is with me when they say that we need it and really appreciate it too. So thank you. Thanks for having me. And yeah, can't wait to be back.
Okay, thanks again. Have a great weekend and stay healthy, Becky. Bye. We'll talk to you soon. Just a couple of other quick things, and we're going to, and our pal Ian Logan says, take care both and stay safe. And I wanted to bring up a quick comment, and I've got to scroll back through here. Wolfie points out that the NAV Center in Cornwall was actually being used as a COVID-19 quarantine center. That was part of the reason that they had to cancel the festival, because the Canadian government originally was housing some cruise ship passengers in Cornwall at the NAV Center, which was the site for the Wonderful World of Whiskey show this weekend. And they have a contract on the place through mid-April. So that was part of the reason why why they had to cancel the festival, was that the government still had the contract for the entire hotel until that point. I wanted to scroll up here. Brent Stewart points out, I'm from Eastern Canada and I can't be down with the Fishki. Hope to see you again at the New Brunswick Spirits Festival. I am counting on that. That's the 25th anniversary for that festival, and I am really looking forward to coming up and getting back to Fredericton in November this year for the 25th anniversary festival. Let's see here. Scott Rogers, terrific interview. Mark and Becky are a great team. Becky's already gone, but thank you, Scott, for the comments. Space Single Malt says, thanks, guys. And going through the comments here. And so if you have any other comments or questions, David Jacob wants to know, do you know, Mark, if Waterford is going to be back next year in Cornwall? So disappointed that it's canceled. Here's what I know from Waterford Distillery in Ireland. They still have, technically, their open day is still scheduled for April 25th. They are waiting for word from the Irish government on whether they can go ahead. But I also know that they may have to cancel it for another reason, because they were still waiting. The last time I checked a few days ago, they were still waiting for bottles of their open day to actually arrive in Waterford, Ireland, so they could actually bottle their open day, their debut bottling. And I have not checked in the last couple of days to see if the bottles have arrived to where they could even bottle those. And that may actually be the key reason why they might have to postpone that on April 25th, because they can't get the bottles in for the open day or for their first debut single malt Irish whiskey, which is going to be coming out shortly after that. So we will keep you posted on that. One of the things we are doing right now is we are starting to get more word of events that are being rescheduled for later in the year that were canceled for this spring. I think Whiskey Fest in Chicago has been rescheduled. I believe the date on that is December 11th. Check the website for details on that. We will update the latest list of reschedulings for events that have been postponed at the WhiskyCast website. We do that all the time, and we'll have that on the show this weekend. We are going to have a complete show this weekend for you, including something that Ars Technica reported on earlier this week, the Whiskey Webs project that is being done by a professor in the engineering department at the University of Louisville, who has been doing microscopic fingerprinting of bourbons using the residue that's left behind when it evaporates on not necessarily a Glencairn glass, as you've seen before, but on a microscopic slide. And I posted a picture on our Twitter feed earlier today, on our social media feeds, of one of these fingerprints that looks almost like a brain scan. Actually, it looks very much like the human brain as you would see in an MRI scan. But we're going to have an interview with him on the show this weekend, and we will have more on that story. It's one of the interviews that I had in the can for the last couple of weeks, but we just couldn't use it because we were so jammed up with coronavirus coverage and events being canceled, distilleries being closed, and things all over the world that were being affected by the coronavirus crisis. So we will catch up with that at some point here. And I want to point out Stephen Radcliffe, New pour in my Glencairn glass, Lot 40 Cask-Strength First Edition. Cheers, Stephen. That's a good dram. I've always enjoyed that one. And I know our pal Dr. Don Livermore at the Hiram Walker Distillery has a webcam, and we're going to try to get him on one of these here in the next few days or so. If you have ideas for folks that you'd like to see us talk to on these live web streams, please let us know about it. You can always email me. The address is comments@whiskycast.com, or you can post feedback on our social media feeds as well. And Ian Logan says, I will try and check in earlier next time. Ian, we're going to do better than that. I want to get you in front of a webcam and get you on one of these while we have some time here, because I know the Glenlivet Visitor Center is not open, nor is the Aberlour Visitor Center. So we can have some fun of this one. And we want you guys to ask questions of these folks as well. So if you have suggestions for somebody that you'd like to see us to get on one of these live web streams, just let us know and we'll see what we can do to make it happen. Until now, we've gone for an hour and 15 minutes, gang, which is longer than we've done any WhiskyCast episode, with the exception of a couple of the Fay-Gilles episodes from back in 2010. So, until next time, until we meet again, please stay safe, gang, and join us again for WhiskyCast this weekend at whiskycast.com and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Mark Gillespie. Have a great weekend. Wash your hands, and please stay safe.